إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله فإن الله تعالى مع المتقين وبعد. There is a statement attributed to the great Imam of Islam, the second of the Khulafa, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala an. He said, إنما تنقض عرى الإسلام عروة عروة. He said that the deen, the vulnerability of Islam, the body of Islam, if you would like, that which Islam is made up of, will be taken apart thread by thread or button by button. And he gave the reason. He said, إذا نشأ في الإسلام من لم يعرف الجاهلية. If you have those who are raised in Islam that do not know al-jahiliyyah, the days of ignorance, they have been brought up in Islam, they have been surrounded by Islam, and they do not know what jahiliyyah is. They have not tasted the bitterness, the coldness, the darkness of jahiliyyah. Therefore they have no appreciation of Islam. And there is a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said something similar to this, لَتُنْقَضَنَّ عُرَى الْإِسْلَامِ عُرْوَةً عُرْوَةً, that Islam will be taken apart, will be dismantled thread by thread. And he mentioned ﷺ that the first thread to be removed from the garment of Islam is al-hukm. Al-hukm bima anzal Allah, to rule by that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down, to govern by Islam. And he said the last thread to be removed from the garment of Islam will be as-salah, the prayer. And when we say that the first thread to be removed, the first button to be undone is the governance by Islam, automatically what do we think about? We think about al-hukam, the rulers, al-muluk, the kings. And we think about what's taking place in the Muslim world today. But we forget about our homes. We forget about our lives. We forget about ruling ourselves, governing our homes with the framework of Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does he say? فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِي مَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُمْ ثُمَّ لَا يَجِدُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَرَجًا مِمَّا قَضَيْتَ وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, they will not have true iman until they come to you to govern between their affairs, and they do not find any discomfort, they do not find any issue within themselves about that which you decide. وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا, and they submit themselves completely. They submit themselves to completely to what? To Islam, to hukmullah, to hukm al-Rasul alayhi salatu wassalam. They don't dilly-dally. They don't pick and choose. They don't justify their desires in the name of Islam. They don't look for loopholes and call themselves practicing. They appreciate the sanctity of Islam. They show Islam the respect that it deserves. Can we say the same about ourselves today? Can we say the same about ourselves today? Umar is telling us what? The garment of Islam will be taken apart. The body of Islam will be dismantled. The nakedness of Islam will be revealed thread by thread. By who? By those who are raised in Islam, under Islam, and they don't know what jahiliyyah is. Why? Because they do not appreciate Islam, because they know nothing else. And so they run after their desires. They chase after their desires. And they do so in the name of Islam. As for those who have tasted Jahiliyyah, they know what Jahiliyyah is. They know what life is without Islam. And they know they need Islam. They need the Salah. They need the Siyam. They need the Halal. They want to stay away from the Haram. As for today, we have individuals that want the Haram and they do it in the name of Islam. They want to live the life of those who chase after this dunya and they do it in the name of Islam. They want to live a life of filth and they do it in the name of Islam. And then we look at what's happening in Palestine and we ask why. The reason is right in front of us. Stand in front of the mirror and you'll see why. As a collective. As a collective. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu udkhulu fi silmi kaffah. O you who believe, enter into Islam completely. Completely immerse yourself in Islam. None of this playing about. None of this dilly or dally. Putting your toes in the water and taking them back out again. No. If you are a Muslim, be a Muslim completely. Stay away from the haram completely. Don't justify running after the haram. Don't justify following your desires. You want to eat the food of non-Muslims and call it halal. Is it halal because you want it? Or is it halal circumstantially? It's halal because you want it to be halal. Because you want it to be halal, it's halal. Why? Because you want to eat it. Marrying multiple women secretly and saying it's halal. It's halal what? To disrespect the daughters of your brother in Islam? To disregard the sanctity of a believing woman? That's halal? Racism and nationalism in the name of Islam. Black Islam, white Islam, Asian Islam. Did the Prophet ﷺ come with an Islam other than Al-Islam? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does He say? Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu udkhulu fi silmi kaffah. Islam. Islam. It's not a deen for a particular people, a particular ethnicity. And what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطَوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Do not follow the steps of Shaitan. Enter into Islam completely and do not follow the footsteps of Shaitan. The one who has not tasted Jahiliyyah, he cannot see the footsteps of Shaitan. He cannot see the footsteps of Shaitan. Why? Because he doesn't know the path of desire where it leads to. The one who's tasted Jahiliyyah, the one who's followed his desires, the one who's lived that life, understands the dark place that he will end up in if he carries on going that way. And that's what's happening today. That's what's happening today. You have a generation raised upon Islam. How many lectures are available today? How many TikTok accounts are available today? How many Instagram accounts are available today? How many videos are shared every single day? Where's the Islam though? Where's the Islam? Young brothers earning money through the Quran, earning status through the Quran, earning a name through the Quran, online, etc., etc. Is that what Islam is? No, it's not. That's not Islam. That's Jahiliyyah. That's what Umar al-An is saying. The one who doesn't know what Jahiliyyah is. And what are we doing? We're unthreading the body of Islam bit by bit. We are the ones that are taking Islam apart. We look to the hukam and we say they're not ruling by the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Are we ruling our lives by the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I can't stay away from McDonald's as a Muslim. I want to make it halal and call it food of the people of the book. And yet I'm going to point my fingers and blame those who are unable to resist the temptations of the dunya when they've got millions and billions in their bank accounts. I have a few pounds and I can't resist. Start with the self. I want to point fingers at the rulers because they have their women and their parties, etc. Yet me, myself, I'm marrying multiple women in the name of Islam behind people's backs, and I'm justifying it and I'm calling it halal. We are the ones that are taking Islam down. We are the ones that are destroying ourselves. What happened to entering into Islam completely? Sibghat Allah. Sibghat Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about his tanning in response to the Christians who talk about baptizing. They baptize a person, bless a person through baptizing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Sibghat Allah, the tanning of Allah. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ مِنَ اللَّهِ سِبْغَةً. And who is better than Allah at tanning? Islam should permeate through a person's body. It's not something which can be seen on the outside, but it doesn't exist on the inside. No, it's a complete way of life. A complete way of life. That's the Islam that we are supposed to be practicing. But we're not. We're not. Why? Because we don't appreciate what we have. We're taking it for granted. We're taking it for granted. It's a guidance Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has selected us, has chosen us, has blessed us to be the people of Islam. And yet we run after other than Islam. We run after other than the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. We look up to other than the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and the Sahaba. And we look to those who need Islam to be our role models. And we try to live like those who need Islam. We are the ones that have been chosen to be the people of Islam. Therefore, we should appreciate it. And we should hold firmly to it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ. Hold firmly to the rope of Allah. What is the rope of Allah? Al-Islam. جَمِيعًا. Collectively. Collectively. And so we need to reflect. We need to reflect, because the way we're heading, it's a very scary place. The justification of desires, the justification of ideologies in the name of Islam. I want to do something, therefore I find a fatwa that suits it. I find a person that allows me to do it. I want to be proud of my color, so I do it in the name of Islam. I want to be proud of my ethnicity, so I do it in the name of Islam. Monopolization of the deen. Projecting myself onto the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Reading onto the Quran rather than reading from the Quran. This is destruction. It's destruction. And we need to reflect. And when we look to the situation of our ummah today, not just Palestine, Sudan, every place of suffering, we have to first look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what part am I playing in the contribution to what's happening today? Because there is no point in talking about the likes of Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi and others if we are not going to be like Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi and others who sold themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sold themselves to Islam. They immersed themselves in the waters of Islam. They didn't pick and choose. That's the path to destruction. That's the path of who? Al-Maghdubi alayhim. Ad-Daleen. That's their path. The path of As-Sirat al-Mustaqim, the path of Ahlul Hidayah is what? To immerse ourselves in the water of Islam completely. Completely. And to reject this life and to understand what it is. And some might say, oh, this is extreme. وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Don't forget your portion of the dunya. What portion of the dunya should we take whilst our brothers and sisters are suffering? What portion of the dunya? Some of the ulama, what did they say? Your portion of the dunya is your kafan. Because that's what goes into the grave with you. That's what goes into the grave. And if talking about rejecting this life is going to cause young brothers difficulty, anxiety, things like this, then we need to man up. We need to man up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with Islam, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can replace us. Allah can replace us. If you have something which is valuable, you take care of it, you hold on to it, you protect it, you encase it. Likewise, Islam. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, and Umar, the statement, because Umar, he clarified the reason why I used the statement of Umar first, that Islam is going to be taken apart, urwatan urwa, button by button, thread by thread, piece by piece. And so we have to take care of the individual pieces of Islam in our life. Otherwise, tomorrow we might wake up and there is no Islam left. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله وحده وصلوات ربي وسلامه على أشرف الأنبياء ومن تبعه وبعد. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, ما نهيتكم عنه فاجتنبوه وما أمرتكم به فأتوا منه ما استطعتم. ما نهيتكم عنه فاجتنبوه وما أمرتكم به فأتوا منه ما استطعتم. He said, that which I have prohibited you from, stay away from it. فاجتنبوه. He didn't say don't do it. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, فاجتنبوه. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likewise gives us this principle in the Quran. لا تقربوا الزنا. Don't come close to zina. It's not don't do it. The Prophet ﷺ, he didn't say that which I prevented you from, don't do it. He said don't go close to it. Keep a distance between yourself and the haram. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says keep away, don't go close to fornication. And then what did the Prophet ﷺ say? He said, وَمَا أَمَرْتُكُمْ بِهِ فَأْتُوا مِنْهُ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. That which I have commanded you towards, do of it what you can. Look at the difference. الحرام فاجتنبوه. الأوامر فأتوا منهم ما استطعتم أو فأتوا منه ما استطعتم. The difference. Haram, stay away. The amr, do of it what you can. And this shows us what the ulama of the past, the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the arifun of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who sought knowledge not for the academic prowess but rather for the individual application. What did they say? They said that taqwa, true taqwa is what? Ijtinabul ma'asi, to stay away from the ma'asi, from the haram. That's true taqwa. Why? Because the munafiq, he can pray. The munafiq can give zakah. The munafiq can engage in jihad. In fact, we have ahadith narrated in the Sahihain. Individuals who died in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only for the Prophet ﷺ to say that this person is a person of the hellfire. Even jihad, even fighting and giving up your life for the sake of Islam, it's something that a munafiq can do. But staying away from the ma'asi, only a person of taqwa. Today what do? Justification of the ma'asi. I live a life in jahiliyyah where I have multiple women. I become Muslim, what do I want to do? I want to carry it on. So what do? I follow the opinion that allows me to get married multiple times without a wali. I like certain foods. Do I say no to my nafs? No. I find a reason or a way that I can eat them. I don't like certain people. I don't like them. Maybe it's their color. Maybe it's their ethnicity. Maybe it's their tribe. Maybe it's their gender. What do? Do I work on the nafs? Do I rid myself of this marad, this disease? Hatred for other believers? No. What do? I justify it. I justify it. I use a non-Muslim ideology. On Yawm al-Qiyamah, we're going to be raised as mu'minun, kafirun, munafiqun. That's it. That's it. You are either going to be from the camp of Islam, the camp of kufr, or the camp of nifaq. We choose. We choose. If you want to be from the camp of Islam, then you have to embrace Islam properly and correctly. Otherwise, the camp of nifaq, it's open to everyone. No one is safe. No one is safe. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about the munafiqeen? وَمَا يَخْدَعُونَ إِلَّا أَنفُسَهُمْ وَمَا يَشْعُرُونَ. They do not fool anyone but themselves, but they don't feel it. They don't realize they're fooling themselves. And the path to nifaq starts with the ma'asi and the shahawat and the shubuhat. Intellectual issues, spiritual issues, and issues of desire. And so we have to take care of our Islam, individually and collectively. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, in the end of times, Islam will be dismantled. And so when we see what's happening today, and we realize that we are getting closer to the end, we have to become even more cautious with ourselves and with our communities. This issue is a serious issue, the issue of Islam. And so we have to give it its due diligence. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from the people of Islam and the people that enter into Islam completely. اللهم تب علينا واعف عنا اللهم اجعلنا من أهل الإسلام والإيمان والإحسان اللهم ارزقنا الإيمان الكامل يا رب العالمين وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم اللهم انصر إخواننا في فلسطين اللهم انصرهم نصرا مؤزرا وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وارض اللهم عن الخلفاء الراشدين والصحابة أجمعين وأقم الصلاة.